Sir.
Sorry, Juan.
Hello.
Wow.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Hey
Very good,
there.
sir. How are
Sorry,
you?
Juan.
I'm trying to cause trouble wherever I can't find it here.
No, that was my fault, Juan. I'm sorry. I thought Prime sent it to you, and sorry, it's my fault, sir. So sorry for the mix-up.
That's all right. No biggie.
Great to have you.
Yeah, thank you so much again for joining us.
Yeah.
That was a great show you did yesterday, Juan.
Oh, the one with Robert David?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah.
And you had said that you had repeated, some of the stuff you repeated, but people should hear it more than once. The way you just chronologically did that order, the last line of defense was the Congress and the Congress and the courts were the last line, was almost the last line. The military was the last line of defense, but the Congress and the courts dropped the ball, so now it's in the military's hands. And how you chronologically brought that right up to the, right where it is now, I thought that was awesome.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. Of course, now we gotta see that next step actually take place.
No. Right, I guess that's what people, inquiring minds. But as you said too, it's great that nothing's leaked out, because that even goes to show that how much of it's a military operation or whatever. Once you kind of understand that, that's been a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, that's true.
Yeah.
So, well, I don't have a lot to add probably for folks. I think that sometimes we want to put the latest thing, newest thing out there. And I think the one thing that I would leave with people for the moment is, it's kind of a moment of prayer. Okay. I met briefly this morning with somebody who's a national news host at one of the very large broadcasters, and had a very nice brief meeting this morning. And of course, everybody wants to know something new, latest, whatever, twist in the wind thing. But there's certain moments where, you're at a pause moment while you think that something should be happening. The rocket's on the pad, the astronauts are ready to go, but there's still systems checks behind the scenes. There's a countdown. There's all sorts of little things that you check and cross-check and make sure every last thing is exactly where it's supposed to be. There's no room for any single point failure. And you get back from each of the various locations where all systems go. There's no system that's showing a red light, a caution light, or whatever. If there is, there's certain holds that are put into a program, a launch program, so that you'll see that maybe the countdown is 4 days long, and along the way they'll have a pre-scheduled hold in the countdown. And so everything to do with the umbilical cords that run power to the spacecraft is checked. And then you have a certain amount of time before you then go to loading fuel into the spacecraft. And so maybe there's 10 hours allowed for loading fuel into the aircraft. And then there's another hold after that before you go to the next phase of the pre-launch schedule, to verify that if there's anything that went wrong, a red light showed up, a sensor isn't showing right, whatever, you hold right there and you don't go to the next phase. So in a 72-hour, say, launch window, a 3-day launch preparation period, you might have engineered the actual launch countdown might only be 60 hours. Well, where'd the other 12 hours go? They had extra hours that were built in between different segments of the launch program to verify all systems go. And if you ran into a problem, to work the problem in that gap, and also to bring in different crews to handle different segments of the launch program that have different specialties. People that are fueling the vehicle are not electricians. People that are in charge of safety systems, are constantly working between all the different groups to make sure that everything is right. So some things overlap, some things don't. And you get down to those last moments and, 3, 2, 1, kaboom. And off she goes. And you have alternate moments that you can go if something showed up that was a problem. But for example, when you're looking at a launch from Earth to space, if there's a satellite going overhead that you're trying to rendezvous with, you have a window for getting into to do that docking. And if you're too many minutes one way or the other, you got to wait till that comes back around to you. Otherwise, you're not able to go up and do the docking maneuver as smoothly. So there may be other factors that people don't realize, that you have your primary launch window, and you may have second or third launch windows, and then even out of a season, stuff going overhead doesn't go in straight lines. These big orbital lines that have you crossing certain locations all around the world, each orbit's a little different. So it's not just, waiting for something come over the very next orbit. That may vary too much, and you have to go to a different one, or you got to add more fuel in the burn, time in the burn, etc., less time in the burn, in order to make certain things happen. So there's a lot of intricacies. One thing builds on another thing, is interrelated to something else. They all go together to pull off a big operation. So people that think that, let's get this done, let's light this candle, let's get there, let's make this happen. Well, they may not understand how complex what's going on is behind the scenes, how much is at stake. And so deep breaths and prayer, the best laid plans of mice and men, as much as there's a lot of confidence that, everything is understood and what has to be done is pretty well engineered and known, and in the days and weeks ahead. This is a contest, and it's not for a trophy. It's for our well-being as a nation, and for the well-being of the whole planet. There's a lot at stake. This isn't patty cakes. So if we need to, for any reason, be patient, hold, do something slightly different, let's give the people that are making those decisions, that handful of people who have brought us to this dance, let's give them room to do exactly what they need to do and use their best judgment to do it, and not second guess, rather than getting frustrated or second guessing. At this critical moment, you got a problem, pray. And of course, that analogy that I shared with you on your show the other day about Belshazzar. Think about this. When I was sharing that the other day, and I shared a little bit of it in Nino's show the other day too, but let me just build that out for a second for anybody that didn't hear that. When the Medes and the Persians were planning to go in there and to take Babylon and to conquer it, the plan that was come up with was to stop the flow of the water that ran down the middle of the city, ran underneath this huge wall. They had armies and everybody else there, and it's a very fortified city. when they did what they did to um, uh, begin this military attack on Babylon, did that start the day that they went in there to take the city? No.
Yeah.
There was some kind of a dam process that they engineered to cut off the water supply into the city. And then were they out there working on it, just letting the water go down over weeks and months, lower and lower, and the Babylonians didn't notice? No. They had to pick the timing. It had to be precise. They wanted that water to go down while it's dark out. They probably wanted it to go down on a moonless night when you wouldn't have the moon reflecting on it to see that it was going down easily.
Right.
They probably wanted it to happen when there was some other distracting event that had been anticipated, some annual party, some annual New Year's Day celebration, when you know everybody's going to be half cocked and distracted with the fireworks overhead or something. So there was a lot of planning that went into the day, the event, the moment that the Medes and the Persians had scheduled for their attack. But go even further back than that. If they had a plan to somehow dam up the river, who came up with that plan? So, some guy is out on the hillside, a nice summer day. He's just laying there, watching the birds fly by, has his girlfriend up there. They're having a picnic. They're having fun, relaxing, enjoying life. They got the picnic basket out and they're lounging out there on the blankie. And all of a sudden, he's trying to figure out how they're going to, do something or other. Maybe he's, a military person or something. Maybe he's trying to figure out how to get those damn Babylonians that keep messing up the whole land or taking all their tax money so he can't sit out there on the blanket with his girlfriend or wife or whatever on a nice summer day, and he wants to be able to enjoy more of those without having to work for King Belshazzar. And so while he's up there, he notices something. He notices, hey, there's like a kind of a lake spot, but there's a fast flowing section of the stream down there. And then he says, well, gosh, you got an area over there that's flat too, but the stream goes this way instead of that way. But, if you just diverted the stream a little bit, or if you just dammed up that real narrow spot right there, you could move the waterway and that whole river wouldn't go down through Babylon. What would that be like if we cut the water supply off to Babylon? They'd just come back and turn it on. But what would it do if you cut it off for a period of time and you can't get over the wall into Babylon? You go under the wall into Babylon. Some guy was just an ordinary guy with a brain working a certain way and out lollygagging around or whatever. And all of a sudden he realizes 100 miles upstream, 50 miles upstream, 10 miles upstream, there's the perfect place to divert that river for a little while. Maybe it's only for a few hours, but it's long enough that when you block that dam down, block that river down just right, you have a few hour window and the water be cut off into Babylon, and they're not going to, be, non-functional over a few hours of no water, but they are going to be vulnerable. And if you brought a big enough army, you could march right into Babylon. If the right situation, they were distracted enough, there's some big party, it's not got a moon-filled night or something, the combination of everything, maybe you could take Babylon. Then he has to go back and he's looking at the engineering. He's got to sell the military commander. The military commander has to sell the engineering guys. The engineering guys have to sell the king of the Medes and the Persians that this is a good idea. This might take years in the planning.
Wow.
How are we going to get all the military equipment there? How are we going to get it there secretly in the middle of the night? How are we going to get this close enough that when they dam that river up, and as it goes down, our troops can get down that riverbed and into Babylon to do this assault. And then where's the king going to be? How do you know where the king's going to be? Maybe he's got girlfriends in every side of the kingdom. Do you have any spies in there that knows exactly where the king's going to be at that night? There's a big party. Where's all of his top aides at? Where's all of his top advisors at? Where's all of his military at? Well, if they're having a big celebration and everything else, you know, it's said that Belshazzar threw a party, and the party was 1,000 of his, advisors and people from nearby kingdoms. Okay. What about all those people that were coming over to Babylon from nearby regions to party with them? You think like there's a little extra traffic on the roads, and some of the military of the Medes and the Persians came in and were even had representatives there at the party? And so that all those entourages provided the perfect cover to get a military close by, under the cover of other activities, to get close enough to be within striking distance to go in. And then the timing has to be perfect to pull this off. You got to dam up the river. You got to do it at a certain time of the day. You got to do it so that when the water starts going down, it's when it's dark and everybody's distracted. It can't go have the river go down slowly. It has to go down rapidly. It has to be, at a certain time of day, at the midnight hour or something. The river's going to be at the lowest it's going to be. You got to have all the troops within distance to be able to sneak in there and get there fast enough to get under the wall while there's still darkness, and get to the key places inside the city, which is a very large city, and to take certain key locations that have to do with communications, the armory, the certain government officials, and before the population realizes what just happened. There's a lot of coordination. And then if the Medes don't have a big enough army, and if the Persians don't have a big enough army, which side was this guy on that saw this weakness of a location where the river could be dammed? Is he on one side or the other? Is there diplomacy has to happen covertly to make sure everybody's going to be on your side, and that they're not going to knife you in the back and tell Belshazzar what you're up to? There's a lot of moving parts here. Right. And then when the big night comes, if you've got your own spies on the inside, you got to have people confirm for you. Yes, Belshazzar's here. Yes, nobody knows this is coming. Yes, they're definitely getting drunk. And, all the Lamborghinis are parked out front. They all brought their entourage of girlfriends and wives. So they're all dressed to the nines. The music's blaring. You can't hear a thing going on anywhere because the music's blaring so loud. You could run an army right down the riverbed in the middle of the city and nobody'd hear you coming. Yep, it's all great. Go, go, go. And the communications, by whatever means, blow the dam. Make it happen. Right. And then even after all of that, who in the smartest guy in the room of the Medes and the Persians, even of their advisors and prophets and seers and astrologers and everybody else, apart from some dream from God himself, who of all those people could possibly have anticipated some magical act, some amazing different act? I mean, could they, if you prayed, would you pray for a meteorite to go overhead and distract everybody outside? Would you pray for, would you send fireworks for some magical ceremony to make everybody look up in the sky? Would you put something in the drink to make everybody get sick or extra drunk or something like that? What would you do to try and guarantee that something's going to happen? But beyond that, if you were praying to God in heaven or the demons or anybody for some kind of extra assistance, what would it be? An extra good dance by the ladies with 9 veils? Would it be, somebody showing off their new jet car? Is it, some event like that that's man-made or concocted? If you prayed to God himself, would you pray for huge explosions in the sky or earthquakes or something like that? Who could have ever anticipated what actually happened.
Right.
And over the shoulder of Belshazzar, while they're partying like crazy, after he is sent for all of the instruments from the Holy of Holies of the Temple of God from the Jews that have been conquered, that have been safeguarded in the saves by Nebuchadnezzar, safeguarded in the storage rooms, and send for them, and then to defile them and to mock God by using them in a drunken rave at the, think about what's going on here. We have groups like Nexium and Sanctum that are pretty twisted, with all of the pornography and the sexual fantasy and stuff like that they're doing in public gatherings. And here you are in Babylon, which is the definition of pornographic society. And what do you suppose was going on in this great feast with 1,000 officials and princes from other kingdoms, and they all show up and they're having a drunken rave? I guarantee you they were distracted to the moon. Then they're going to bring in these instruments from the temple of God. Why? They didn't do it just to look at their beauty and anything else. It was to mock and to defile them, to show their power over the God of the Jews. That's the whole point. And so when they get there and they're about to do this defilement to show power, what does God do? Think of who's there. You got the Maria Abramovich of the day, some guy pretending to be a woman that's there smearing feces on the wall and sperm and also blood, everything in the spirit cooking ceremony. And we're calling out all the spirits. What are they doing? Dead bodies made to look like cakes and things like that. Same thing also. Are they mocking and laughing and having their sacrifices right there in this feast?
Wow.
I don't think that's a far reach at all.
Right.
To imagine what they were showing to their gods, the Babylonian gods of what's going on. So they're having this huge feast, and so the Maria Abramovich throws a bunch of crap on the wall, makes some art, says that this is to draw out the spirits, cutting their hands and their arms, suck the pain out, whatever, insanity that they happen to be up to in these feast gatherings to one up everybody else, to be spectacular. And what's God do? Oh, spirit cooking. Oh, you want to call out the spirits? Oh, hey, okay. I think I might be able to one up you on this one.
Definitely.
So they're calling out their spirits and they're marking on the wall, and out of the cloud, over Belshazzar's shoulder, a disembodied hand shows up and spirit writes right into the stone as though it's butter, and writes a few lines. And those words, they're not huge words. They're nothing super hyper complex, but nobody can read them. Nobody understands the language. All the advisors are called in, all their, spirit guides. Oh, they're right there on the other side of the room. Hey, Maria, come over here. Read this for me. What's it say?
Oh, fucked.
That's not too far off the list. And they can't read it. Finally, the king and everybody, their knees are knocking. I mean, this wasn't a minor thing. It was fun when it was somebody else doing it, when they were in control. It was fun when the Maria is over there doing it and showing them how art is, and making it all splashy, and the little blood here and a little sperm there. Okay, that was all fun and games, especially if it was somebody else's blood, somebody else's life. Mixing it up and drinking it and having fun with their adrenochrome party, their adrenalized party there in Babylon. It was all fun when it was done at somebody else's expense. But now, when a disembodied hand of God appears out of nowhere, and they don't have control over it, and they don't know what it's saying, they're totally mesmerized in the moment. And the queen says, there is somebody that might be able to read this. He was an advisor to your dad, Nebuchadnezzar. Let's call for him. And of course, he's not somebody they wanted to hear. He's on the other side. They got him in the outhouse somewhere because the stuff he says, they don't like that stuff. It's kind of judgmental, and it's tells them to tone it down and behave themselves, and they don't want to hear that. So, he's not, their favorite guy to have around. But they call Daniel out, and he gets there, and what's he do? Exactly why they didn't have him around. First thing out of Daniel's mouth, you didn't want to hear me because of what happened with your dad or grandfather, Nebuchadnezzar. He learned how to respect the God in heaven. And he learned that while men may rule on the earth, they rule at the grace of God in heaven. That God determines the affairs of men ultimately. And so they can think they're in charge, but they're not actually in charge. Ultimately, God's the judge, and he can decide who rules and doesn't any day he wants to. Mm-hmm. And if you're going to mock him, God's going to mock you back. And who do you think's going to win that argument? And so Daniel then turns and looks at this wall. The king says, if you can read this to all of the people here and to me, I'll make you the third most powerful person in my kingdom. Daniel's looking at the words, and he says, you can keep your wealth to yourself. You can keep the Ferraris and the girls. I'm a eunuch. I don't have any use there. Castrated as a very young boy. He speaks softly like Michael Jackson because of that, because he never matured. And so he's got this soft falsetto voice. Everybody has to strain to hear him. And he says, you can keep all that stuff to yourself, but I'll tell you what it says. It says the Medes and the Persians are dividing your kingdom, that your kingdom's going to be divided between them. And you, King Belshazzar, are weighed in the balances and found wanting. And therefore, you're going to die tonight. This is it. It's all over for you. In that moment, the whole crowd, all the advisors, everybody that's there was having a great time. I don't think they were having a great time anymore. Mm-hmm. But even as all that drama was taking place between them and God, it wasn't about something that was going to be, because there was no vowels in the words. That's why they couldn't read it. It was Hebrew without the vowels. Vowels are movement. Vowels are action. They made those words action words. In God's mind, in God's eye, this was already a done deal. It was already a fait accompli. David added the vowels for the explanation for them, but the reality is it was a done deal. God's action had already taken place. They were just only going to momentarily realize that. And as David finishes saying what he's saying, they put a robe on Daniel, that denoted that, he was in this royalty position reigning over the kingdom, but it was too late. They conveyed power to him, but within moments, a short time, the Medes and the Persians were right there in the middle of the party, taking people prisoner and killing people and taking their generals and all of their wives and all of these people from areas around captive, and the king and his queen put to death. And Daniel was spared. But that moment, even then, the people that did the attack, that took the power, they themselves couldn't have planned on the God component to what happened there. the God component was totally unique and in the hand of God. You think God didn't know what he was going to do? You think God didn't see what the Medes and the Persians were about to do? God's the one that put the fire, the light in the mind of whoever that guy is up on the hillside picnicking with his girlfriend and looks down, smoking a cigarette, relaxing, whatever, and sees the choke point in the river and says, hey, look down there. Look at all those rocks on the hillside. They've been there probably for, 1,000, 1,000,000 years. If we just put a lever underneath a couple of those rocks and get them loose, we'll start a rock slide, and it'd fill that whole riverbed up and it'd choke that river off. And by the way, if we just dig a little deeper trench up there, of a little bit above that spot, the river naturally divert down into this little lake area for a few hours until it fills up, and then it go over the top of the dam we made. But we buy 6, 8, 10, 12 hours of a dry riverbed. We could go right in that city. You think all of that, God didn't see that? God didn't plan that? God didn't put everything in place long before it ever got there? The planning for what's about to happen has been in place for a very long time. The checkpoints, the cross checks, the verifications, the verifying that everybody's on board, everybody's queued in, everybody's ready to go. Let's light this puppy. We're close.
Okay.
Take a deep breath. This isn't a time for hand wringing, and it isn't a time for throwing stones about not getting it done fast enough, not getting it done the way you think it's supposed to get done. If you're that smart, you go do it. Otherwise, shut up, pray, and stay out of the way.
Okay. I got that message loud and clear. That's amazing. Wow, Juan, I am so excited to hear this. This is the perfect timing because a lot of us are under some increased attacks coming from people that we know, of course, family, friends. But just, being in that gap, like you were saying, that gap of, if you want to say time. And, one of the things that you're helping me personally to see is to become more in awe of God again, because I think, at times we can forget, I can forget his qualities. And if he's omniscient, omnipotent, he is, God. This is bigger than we can imagine. So if the humans had these plans, and we heard how long this has been in the planning phase, then how would we not think God, who stands outside of time itself, would not know what's going on and work on every realm? His warriors are present and active. So we, even though we feel this sense of limbo, this is a gap moment. And I know that even from, I don't know, I could think of physics, and it kind of seems like this is one of those times where you gain more energy and, in that gap season, and you do it through prayer and supplication and getting back close to God again, and back close to your humanity, coming into your natural mind. So these are the times where we have to exercise the fact that we have faith in God. We understand his attributes and qualities. So why would we question that, we have this if we are on the side of God? So I appreciate this, at this phase, to understand and help even other people to understand where they, lose vision and maybe their faith is shaken a little, that this is a gap season and we are coming into now about to launch out. It's going to surprise us all because we've been kind of, coasting. We haven't seen big moves of God in humanity, like what's about to happen, I sense,
Well, let's think about it. You get all these army guys, they're all ready to go, they're all keyed up, they're all suited up, they're all, you got the SEAL Team 5 and 6 guys, the SEAL Team 3 guys, you got all these support people in exactly the right place. They got their wetsuits on. They got all their gear. They double checked, triple checked, quadruple checked all of their arms. They're ready to go. And something completely out of even their sight has to happen. They're ready to go, but they're watching the water. They're watching the water. They're watching the water. That dam wasn't getting knocked down, a half mile out of town. That dam that was being created, wherever that rock slide was to go in and stop up the river, that wasn't going to happen where everybody in the world knew what was about to happen. The guys doing that part of the activity, tens of miles up the road, out of sight, out of hearing range. Some incredible engineering feat was prepared to make sure it went off with perfect timing, that the rock slide goes into that channeled spot in the river exactly the right way, that there's other materials in beside the river that are in exactly the right position. It might have taken years to do a proper preparation to choke off that water supply going to the river. It wasn't just a stream, it was a river to supply a whole city, a huge city. Tens of miles long, tens of miles wide. Babylon, the Hanging Gardens in Babylon alone were considered the seventh wonder of the world on the same scale and complexity as the Great Pyramid at Giza. Wow. So this was no small, minor undertaking here. And then all those people sitting there waiting, even the spies that are inside at the party. Imagine the guy that's supposed to get the word out. Yeah, they're all here. Everybody's assembled. I see so-and-so from such and so kingdom next door just showed up in his Lamborghini. They got the Lincoln behind, the limo. They got all 15 dancing girls in that. A couple of them are pretty cute. Here comes General so-and-so and his entourage. So we know that the wall at this area here is minimally manned, probably with the privates, because they don't have enough rank to show up at the party here. So their least trained people are out at the edges of the city. And yeah. And I see now they've just started the second round of drinks, so they're starting to get a little bit tipsy. And he's passing the word out, go. It's a go. Put that dam in place. And then those guys are sitting there waiting, dug in, ready to go, watching the water go, like trying to watch water boil. Okay. As the water goes down, it doesn't go off like it's on a spigot. Right. It trickles down. It's going lower. Is it going to go low enough? Is the water going to go low enough for us to actually get in there? If you got your wetsuit on, are you going to be able to sneak in through at the river, get underneath the edge of the thing? Are you going to travel down the lowered riverbed? Maybe it doesn't go all the way to a dry riverbed. It just goes down to where it's only a foot or two, but you got 3 feet above you to get underneath the wall. And you got to slide down in the river, use the river for cover because it's a long city. What, are you going to march 10 miles unseen through the middle of the city? Are you going to float down along in there in some kind of camouflaged contraption or your own suits, etc., with your arms to take the city? The complexity of what's described in just a few lines in that scripture is incredible. And then the actual follow through on it in time to come, this era, this moment that you're living through right now, people will be amazed at just how much was at stake, how much was in play, how many moving parts there were, and how intricately all of them had to be pulled off with, complete, total, perfect intricacy, like a fine Swiss watch, with very little real room for error. And the illusions that are going up, not just to keep things flowing here in the country, but across the world, with leaders across the world guessing at what's really going on and how it's going on, who's in charge, etc. Seeing facts that don't add up, just like you guys are, just like people all across the country are. Well, that doesn't make sense. Well, that doesn't add up. But they brought the helicopter in. but it didn't land really. It's there. What does that mean? Well, I don't know. Well, why do you got, 1, 2, 3 White Houses? You got the one in Hollywood. You got the one at the military base. You got the White House that's the real White House, but it might not be the real White House because the lights go out at 11 o'clock every night. Okay, I see the gardener out there. He's working on the rose garden, and he's out there, and he's making sure that there's plenty of shit there to keep the roses blooming. But I don't know what other shit's going on over there because I'm looking, and it just looks like shit to me. I don't get this. Come on. Okay, this is a very complex operation with all the world watching. It's a magic act. If you've ever sat, I was out at Magic Castle here a while back, a private get together with some friends, and the magicians come through. And I'm telling you, you can sit right there. They're right at the table in front of you. You can sit at the back of the room, side of the room, any corner of the room. Those guys have it down, man. And the pretty girls with the feathers on their backside, and they twitch this way and they twitch that way, and they show a little cleavage there. And it's like, and you're trying to keep track of what's going on here, and the guy's doing this card thing, and it's like, how did he do that? Right there in front of me. Right. You don't think you're seeing a card game with more trickery and chicanery than the best masters on the planet are at it right now, and you're being fooled for a reason. Okay, and both sides are trying to own the day. It's a time for prayer, some deep breaths. This is far from over. Right. Enjoy the show.
Thank you.
Juan, just one question. I have one question, Juan.
Yeah.
You had said before that you thought that it could get a little bit worse before it gets better. So you said, get ready, whatever. Is that still in play, Juan? Like, let's say we all don't talk for another week or 2 weeks or whatever. Is there an event that potentially could come down that could be a little hand wringing, so to speak, that we would say, okay, Juan said that this type of an event could happen, and just, assure everybody, even though it may look a little, scary, let's say, that the good guys got it under control. I guess that's the question.
Let me put it to you this way, Jerry. So imagine, one of the things in terrorism is that they always leave some guy barely alive to go tell the story. They come in and do some horrible deed to a bunch of the people, but they leave, might be 200 of them there, and 1 or 2 or 3 are left to tell the story. And so the guy shows up on the evening news, and he's all blasted and powder burns and barely able to function, blood everywhere. And they ask him, what happened? Stick the mic in front of him. What happened? Okay. And he's telling them the story, and his hand gripping, and tears are coming out and everything else. It's got everybody's attention. There's trolling going on both ways, and they're part of the distraction. Imagine that you lived in Babylon, and your kid works over at the temple, the king's house, where they're having this huge get together. Oh yeah, it's going to be incredible. My kid works there, and all the Lamborghinis show up, all the Ferraris, oh yeah, there's a Bugatti, and it's really fast, and then all the girls are there. The guys are dressed to the nines in their uniforms. Just love a guy in uniform, a lot of embroidery, and they got those shoulder patches and everything. They're just, oh my gosh, it's like the event to be at. And then he's at the back of the room, sees the hand show up on the wall. He's not really part of the whole thing, scares him no end, wets his pants, and races out of there to change his pants. And on the way decides he's not going back in there because something's up and his knees are knocking. And he gets down the street and he tells the girl that's selling flowers on the corner what he just saw. A hand came out of nowhere and wrote on the wall, and everybody is scared, and they're sending for the prophet Daniel right now. And it's the scariest thing. I'm out of here. If you know it's good for you, get the hell out of here right now. Okay. Right. Okay. And that word travels fast. And the next guy wasn't there. The flower girl wasn't there, but they got the emotion, they got the fear, they got the drama. And then somewhere down the road, there's the news crew from CNN. And what happened? And you were there. And you saw it yourself. Okay, live from CNN. This is what happened. I don't know. How could you predict a disembodied hand showing up out of nowhere? But I can tell you this. I fully expect a hand of God moment that you probably couldn't quite predict, that the best laid plans of mice and men, as much as the Medes and Persians, as much as anybody in this or past administration, as much as all the military generals and the business leaders and the guys with their Bitcoin hidden away and their gold, as much as everybody planned and thought they knew what was going to happen next, I think we're in a moment in history where God's people showed up on January 6th and they asked for some kind of divine intervention to save their country, for themselves, but more importantly for their kids. That's what I kept hearing over and over, for my children, my grandchildren. God heard them. God heard his people. They can say anything they want. They can malign us. They can, do anything they want. God heard his people. They showed up. There was prayer here on the 5th and the 6th. The rallies that were here on the 5th, it was a very, I won't say somber. It wasn't sullen. It was a kind of a joyous event, but it was also, there was a certain gravity to it, a certain, everybody knew why they were there, and they were looking for a move from God to save the country. I believe that that's what will be heard. And I think that the next move, as much as the planning may have taken place to regain the country from lots of different angles and is in play, that God doesn't share his glory with any man, that there's some kind of divine aspect to what's about to happen. Am I saying what it's going to be? No. How would you know a hand is going to show up out of nowhere? But they mock God. They're mocking God's people. God's children are not for sale. And God will not allow his children to stay in slavery to these monsters without end, especially when the people have cried out for God's intervention, God's assistance. God's going to hear those prayers. That the evil has gone on a long time and looks like there's no way to stop it, and it's sealed. That's why I shared stuff about a near-death experience, well over a year ago. I've seen this election cycle, this election period, as a near-death experience moment. But, within the theme of dark to light, we have, we're crossing over that meridian. The spring equinox is just days away now. Every day gets lighter and lighter. And this is a moment where I think God himself doesn't want people to say the Medes beat the Babylonians, the Persians beat the Babylonians. In the telling of the story in generations afterwards, even in a scriptural standpoint, the Medes and the Persians are just a footnote to the story. What's the thing that everybody remembers? The hand of God. Okay, so what do you think is going to be remembered about this in generations to come, about this moment in America? If we have a prayer as serious as the situation is now, do you think, apart from a hand of God moment, that we're going to get through this? Do you think that all the king's horses and all the king's men would be adequate to come up against the monsters that have America in a chokehold at this moment in time? I mean, it's been going on a long time. It's a pretty thorough chokehold they got us in. That's what you're feeling right now. That's the conversation everybody's had. I know you guys are getting, 100 messages a day from people. They're taking all the guns, they're forcing shots, the kids are going to be in school taught all this stuff, they won't believe anything anymore. They've got the this in the bottom of the Walmarts and the stadiums, that, and the space aliens are coming in, and there's octopus is going to be walking on the earth, and they're going to be choking every person, one person at a time, and it's all going to be over, and there's not going to be any more food except for Twinkies that survive if you've got them buried deep enough in the basement and it doesn't get flooded. Okay, come on, man.
Right.
If you think it's going to be that dire, then you better pray.
Yeah.
Okay, you got two choices. Go start digging deeper in your foxhole. Okay, and disconnect yourself from society, and hope there's enough room for at least one or two of the grandkids in there, and you got enough food to last the next 1,000 years.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Bend over deeper and kiss your ass goodbye.
Right.
Or pray and look for some kind of a divine action. That's why the people showed up here.
Amen.
And by the way,
Amen.
I'm just telling you, this mockery of God's people will not stand. This steal of America will not stand. And yes, there's evil here in the country. That's why I talk about these monuments to foreign gods. To occult gods, even with this city that leverages itself over the rest of the nation. The reality is, if you have a prayer, it's probably going to be supervised and upstaged by God himself. Imagine the commanders of both the Medes and the Persians. Imagine the guy that sat on the hill and got the idea for choking off the water supply, damming it up for just a few hours. I'll bet you that guy, he had visions of glory in his mind all the way. I could be the guy responsible for conquering Babylon. Wow. Okay? I guarantee you, they're going to let me have my pick of the Ferraris and the Lamborghinis and the Bugattis and the girls. I can go over there and I get first pick of the litter. Okay? And the same with the generals, and the same with the SEAL team guys. We're going in under the river. Yeah, okay. Got it. Okay. Go. We're going to win this. Okay. At the end of the day, who won it really? God orchestrated all those events. You make your plans, but then you give them over to God.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
If you're not praying right now, you don't understand what's at stake. There's 1,000 things that can go wrong. If you know 25 of them, you're a genius.
Powerful.
Yeah, loud and clear.
And we must remain nimble. That's the word that I've just been meditating on. And it's like a ballet, it's anything where you just stay in that nimble, flexible mindset, because contingencies are always a part of military strategy. So we're all being called to learn military strategy and to have them, even that focus when we do pray, we are praying like warriors.
Well, the scriptures put on the full armor of God. We battle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers of darkness in high places. If you think this is just against men and flesh, then you're missing the whole point. Everything I've pointed out here in the city is occult symbology to demon gods. This is a spiritual war. If you don't see it that way, then you're probably not much help. Because if you only see it in the physical realm, then you're probably about to, again, you're probably one of the ones that's doing the most hand wringing and stone throwing, because it hasn't happened the way that you heard it. We're here. We're now. God is a here and now God. The things that are about to happen, best laid plans of mice and men. And now we see, we get God's determination. What if, something went wrong, the river didn't go down as fast as they thought? There's always things that happen. What if, one of the SEAL teams was detected on its way down and wasn't able to get to the right spot? But yet God showed up and did this overriding act that distracted the key people at the key places. Maybe the whole plan would have failed, except for the handwriting on the wall that distracted everybody in these key positions long enough for the guys to regain their place, their footing, their composure, and continue to take the battle to the other side. And remember, the whole city was taken. This huge, vast city was taken in one night, in one day. There was huge battles that occurred. It wasn't like they just walked in, grabbed the keys off the wall. Okay, yeah, I take that house right over there, whatever. No. It was mayhem. It was mayhem. This was the most developed city on the planet. God himself intervened to take it over the top. If you got a bunch of people that they're all ready to go out and do all sorts of things, well, against who? Who's the real enemy in what happened here in America? Foreign masters conspired to concoct a lying vote to steal our election from us and put somebody into office that was of their choice, their bidding, with the complicity of persons who are traitors within our own ranks. The courts haven't heard any of those cases because they don't have standing for whatever reason. There's a lot that has to happen. Even as some of this stuff gets turned over and reversed, there's a lot of house cleaning to be done. We're coming into the second year of our Jubilee year. And so, yeah, you get the big stuff out, you get the big critters and monsters out at some point. Then you got to power wash the walls and ceiling off. You got to power wash the muck off the floors. We've been flooded by evil. And anybody that's ever lived in a floodplain and had to go back in and repair after that knows exactly what I'm talking about. There's huge cleanup and repair to be done to America. Some things are going to have to be replaced and rebuilt. The reindustrialization of America, so that there's a future with production of jobs for the young people, and a rethinking on our education system. One of the things that was going on over at Epstein Island was that he said he had a real interest in the sciences and in physics and other things. So they had people like Hawking over there and other scientists from MIT and other locations. And what did they do? They got compromised. They got honeypotted. They got blackmailed. And then out through their whole career, it wasn't just the businessmen that were getting blackmailed. It wasn't just the politicians. It was also the scientists. The university system here in America. The biggest donor in the university system outside the United States is Qatar. So all of these, you put $1 million into a university and Qatar comes in and adds another 100,000. Well, who's the one that they kiss up to? Oh, it's Qatar, because that's the extra money. You were going to give yours anyway, but they asked to be a little change over here. And then we said we'd do that for the extra 100,000. And now we got a professorship, and that professorship sees things differently in a geopolitical basis. And by the way, it's not just 100,000. It's 100,000 from the Qatar people, and it's another 100,000 from the Saudis, and it's another 100,000 from Soros. And next thing you know, your university is teaching your kids things that are nightmares to you. And they're politicizing them. They're not actually teaching them. And then, by the way, the high schools and the junior high schools, all the politicians in there, they're doing the same thing. Because if you want that federal money, that matching federal money to pay the higher salaries and build the bigger buildings, well, then you got to agree to do it by their standards. So they just add an extra 10, 15, 20%. Well, wait a minute, it's our money. Yeah, it's your tax money. But it all goes to Washington, goes through the filter of centralized federal government, and then it comes back to you with a little left over to sweeten the pot at the state level. We're being leveraged by these huge players that have interests that aren't, fly over America's interests. Yeah, you didn't raise your kids to be this way. You didn't raise them to think the way that they're being taught in the universities. They go off to school, nice, bright-eyed, fun kid, and they come back a contemptuous, jaded, pissed off personality. And by the way, they can't find a job that does anything of what they got taught because, they got politicized.
Right.
They went to a red camp and just got politicized, but they didn't learn a skill. They didn't learn how to build anything. They learned how to tear stuff apart, ship it off. They learned how to do red tape and regulation and the greening of America. Yeah, it's green because they turned you into fertilizer and planted you. That's their greening plan, is the death of America. They think you're a problem. So we've got a lot of work ahead of us, a lot of rethinking to do as a people. But there's some things that have to happen first. We have another year of fallow country, but this is the year where we get things steam cleaned, fresh, pristine, and then we invite Spirit of God back in, and we start rethinking how we're doing it. And that's your audience. All these other audiences that are just hand-wringing, looking at the minutia of the details, the mechanics of government, the players, etc. They're not thinking of the spiritual side that much. And the reality, just like the conversation I had with the person this morning, a name everybody in your audience would know instantly. Our conversation was about the God component, the Esther moment, the flip, and this instant where God makes his presence known. He was there the whole time, but you didn't see him. And now he's about to show up. You think God wasn't present at all the partying and the spirit cooking and all of the evil that was going on in the room that brought him to the point where suddenly, out of the midst of the cloud, he was there the whole time. He lets his disembodied hand show up. The rest of him was there.
Right.
He just let him see his hand only, writing in the stone like it was butter. God's present here right now. That's what a lot of people, but God, they're doing this and they're doing that, and this is happening. It's the end. It's the end. We're all done. America's gone. It'll be toast. It's a near-death experience. If it's going to be a death experience, what's it matter? You're not going to be here anyway. Pray to God. It's a near-death experience. Grab that silver thread of faith. Pray like you never prayed before. Please, God, save America, and let me be part of it. And then after he does what he does next, these players do what they were going to do. Remember, God didn't destroy Babylon, take it over, without using those armies of the Medes and Persians. He showed up, but then he used an army that he had also prepared in the physical to do his will, to do his bidding. That's what's coming next. And then we have to compel the rest of America to, invite God back in to be part of our governance and to take America on a heavenly course, not a hellish course like it's been, to do the flip, reverse course, rethink what we do and how it's being done, not the devastation and dismantling of America. That's what Washington's been supervising over, the bankruptcy of America for generations, because they hate us. We're a challenge to these monsters out into the world. That's what we have to do, and make America great again.
Yes, sir. One quick one. with a lot of the unrest that we have with the anxiety about things coming public, because that's really what it's all about. You know, it's not that people don't trust; they want to see something in public. And but the strange thing is that during the most dangerous times, during the Obama administration, the Bush administration, the Clinton administration, while we were at their mercy, you know, many of these people were very at peace. They're not at peace right now when we should be at peace, because we have so much more control and so much more hope. Do you have anything to speak to concerning that? Because times have really changed, and that's one of the reasons why I'm so hopeful. Times have really changed, and I'm aware of it. You know what I mean? Even the frequency and the energy in the earth is so much more lighter and more pleasant compared to how it was during the Obama administration. It was very satanic and very evil energy all the time. You know what I mean? So do you have anything to speak to that?
How hard is it? How much of a fight is there when darkness fills a room and it's pitch black dark? How much of a fight is there when you light the candle, when you flick the switch on the light switch for the light to overcome the darkness? It's instantaneous. And by its mere presence, it brings light, clarity. You're not banging through the room, tripping on stuff and banging your toes. We just have to show up with the light of God in our life and our soul. Be the light in the room to America. The shining city on the hill to the world. If we just show up, we can change everything. But that's why your audience is so important. Your audience is not just a news audience. They're not just interested in the latest tidbit of information about, you know, what's happening and who decided what, who was in the room when some bizarre thing happened or whatever. This is about an audience that does believe in a divine creator who sent his son to save the world. Even if you're Jewish or Muslim, you believe that a Messiah is required for the salvation of mankind, an intermediary between God and man, because of the presence of sin. Okay, so we live in a world where demons and the devil himself are constantly trying to steer us on the rocks, constantly trying to destroy us because he hates man. Man is a challenge to his place in the universe. And so we have to be salt and light in the world today. If you've lost your saltiness, you know, what use are you? You're just dirt. You need to be counted. You need to be heard. You need to hold firm. And then that doesn't mean that you're dominating over your neighbors and being ridiculous. A little salt goes a long ways. You're looking for an act of God. You're looking for some justice. Who will be valiant? Who will be valiant for justice sake? Many injustices have been going on in our name as a country, as a people. And this is the moment where we take a deep breath and prayerfully look to see how we can be part of reversing those injustices. And the scripture is valiant for justice sake, not valiant for ribbons, not valiant for retirement, not valiant for accolades on the nightly news. You know, justice for justice sake, valiant for justice sake, just because it's the right thing to do. A lot of things are going on that just flat aren't the right thing to do in our name, with our tax money, with our life energy. That money you get from your check every week from wherever it is, it represents your life energy, moments out of time that you can't buy back or replace. They're gone. Once used, every day they're gone. And you're trading your life energy to do the will of God, or are you trading your life energy to do the will of demons, devils, monsters? We reclaim the right to see our life energies go to good purposes, to build things, to make things, to create a future for our children and grandchildren, and to go out and help the rest of the world. Not to be our brother's keeper, but to be our brother's brother. And that's this moment that we're in. That's this moment that you guys, your audience, are so key, so critical to. And that will be done by faith, not just merely by men's works with great engineering achievements and military and legal premises being followed with perfect timing to get the SEAL teams under the edge of the city and grab the reins of control. There's a God component to this. If we have a prayer, God's got to show up decisively. And I believe that that's somewhere here in the works. Did God show up when the dam was blown? Or the rocks were blown to create this dam on the water with the river going underneath? Might have been the same moment, might have been sometime afterwards, right in the middle of everything. At some key moment, I believe that in looking at this later down the road, this moment in history, this year, this time, people will look back on it and say, that was a God thing. Something here as a trigger, as a pivot, as a hinge point in this whole operation. God will not share his glory, his salvation to our country with any man. People can say, well, the military this and Trump that, and some other person something else. But at the end of the day, all of those things, we might not even think of them primarily. And if we do, we might do an injustice in a different way. God intends for us to remember the handwriting on the wall and the hand that put it there.
Amen. That's awesome.
Thank you.
All right. Hey, folks, I've got another meeting that I have to get to, and I'm already a bit late for it. Okay. And I know, I just have been going from one thing to the next. Yeah. And we're at a critical moment. Mm-hmm. I appreciate all of your folks' prayers. Pray for the country, pray for something, expect a miracle. Okay. Prayer changes things. And we're at a hinge moment. That door is going to turn on a hinge of prayers, and your audience can tell their children and grandchildren when they ask them, what did you do? I prayed because it was scary. All right. You're scared, you're hand wringing, you're worried. Be able to tell the kids you pray.
That's right. Thank you so much, Ron. We love you, and we are keeping you in our prayers. We know you are doing great things, and we thank you for being valiant for justice sake.
All right. And then, by the way, I am doing stuff related to the movie stuff. We'll talk about that at some point in the not too distant future. Jim Caviezel and I have been really enjoying working together on that, and we have some stuff we're doing over the next several days and behind the scenes to get this done, and a couple of other really great folks. I'm telling you, for all that there's huge problems in the media entertainment industry, there's some really good guys too. So some prayer there so we can pull this off, get it done, would be appreciated also.
And tell Jim we said hi.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll do that. If he can stop screaming while he's riding with me in the vet, we're going to go run an errand or two. So, he's used to riding in those Shelbys, and I enjoy the Shelbys, but I happen to have a vet right now. It's a little bit hotter this week. So we'll see if I can, screaming like a girl over there. If I can, I'll probably have to wear some cotton in my ears, but don't tell him I said that, but I'll try and record it and let you guys listen to it next time.
That would be fun.
All done on a closed track where no kittens or neighbor kids were in danger.
Exactly. Right.
Amen. Thank you for your time, Mark.
Thank you.
All
sir.
right, guys. Talk
All right.
again soon.
Thank you so much. God bless. Thanks, brother.
Bye.
Bye,
Love you, brother.
everybody.
Bye.